What's in a name? The name of the game is attitude. Cyberpunk 2077 isn't just a title, it's a license. The proposal of visiting an adult amusement park where modern fascinations are met with the function of futuristic capabilities. You'll be taken on a ride of your choosing, but the experience is best appreciated when you lack complete control. The overall design is one of the most detailed and disciplined open-world games to date, and if you like RPGs occupied with actionable activities, this is a game you've been waiting a long time for. Cyberpunk 2077 supposedly exists in a certain time and place, in a seething, alternate reality or retro future fitted with a crude, materialistic temperament. This sci-fi world is a hologram of our present, skinned by futurism, offering a depiction that is socially accurate, a setting technologically speculative. Cyberpunk 2077 is a high-tech and high-concept RPG with a low morale. The liberty to act criminal or play by the rules is yours, except there are few rules to follow. This is a sandbox built to accommodate excess and the fast-paced, instant gratification of its settlers. You can live and let live or die, but most importantly, the world feels lived in. There's always something going on whether or not you are there to incite it. NPCs wisecrack with each other and have their self-contained altercations. Intriguing conversations and conflicts occur independently of you initiating them, which makes exploring the plane of existence more rewarding and tantalizing because you know it's not all about you. This game isn't about finding a destination. This game is about running into the unknown and bracing for impact like a clash of bumper cars. It is graphic and uncensored, remarkably rendered in shades of polychromatic fluorescence, the hues indiscreet from the dark and troubled story that it lets you in on. The words you'd commonly expect to describe the size of an open-world game, like huge, sprawling, expansive, don't apply here. Those words are overused, their concepts underutilized. The world of Cyberpunk 2077 is a spacious one, yet condensed and concentrated, a reality that, at times, dawns on and dwarfs the player, making you feel meager if not inconsequential to it all. Though you have potential, you are but a tourist exploring a pleasure palace, enticed by the inner workings, tamed by the knowledge of its limits. Through this asymmetrical balance, you drift into immersion. The map is compact, but the world doesn't feel small, as the ability to journey and investigate is on a large scale and all-inclusive. Here, you cover distance without the mileage. This ratio of geography to feature attributes is a dense, proportionate give-and-take experience. For an open-world RPG, the enormity of exploration within the margins is unprecedented. But voyaging in this city doesn't warrant a hustle and bustle approach to navigation, because if you blink, the animated can outstrip you. Like Blade Runner, the game appears as one big matte painting. If jazzy artwork and offbeat architecture appeal to you, Cyberpunk will likely make a sightseer out of you around every turn, with plenty of monogrammed diagrams of dystopia and peculiar advertising lurking. These promotions pop out at you like neon bulletins, curated to make you into a new recruit of malice and misanthropy. In Cyberpunk 2077, identity is an open-ended concept. Through personalization across a wide spectrum, this game allows you to be whoever and whatever you want. Through gameplay, your interpretations become even looser. Your character has the pre-existing condition of being a cybernetic scoundrel, his or her body rigged with auxiliary parts to aid in forms of hacking that range from siphoning money from machines to sabotaging enemies by short-circuiting them remotely. Here, everything is connected by a mainframe and no one is safe from corporate control. You can build your netrunner as you'd like, prioritizing stealth, melee, guns, and cyber attacks. The downside to this is that upgrades are costly, and by the time you can afford them, you probably have no use for them, especially in a game that is more oriented in narrative and exploration than combat. Besides, Being a first-person game, your appearance isn't all that important. Thankfully, V's voice acting is good, as is the game's script, and his or her responses to stimuli are acute and impactful. The game allows you to get very involved in the lore of the supporting cast and continued quests depending on your preferences and in an order that you choose. Cyberpunk 2077 is populated with interesting characters that are easy to buy into and care for. There are plenty of dialogue options and deterministic outcomes at your disposal, but it often seems as though your NPC friends are the ones developing your personal narrative, more so than V having his own personal contribution. From the brutal becomingness of the Badlands to the droning fleecing of the corporate pecking order, each sector is diverse, occupied by sundry cultivated locals, each with their own beginnings that you can add definition to. Keanu Reeves stands out in his bit of marketing, easy to label as the foul-mouthed specter Johnny Silverhand, an abrasive and sometimes poetic agitator with a punk rock alter ego percolating from head to toe with the glamour of grunge, a hooting, hollering, edge-espoused figure that is often more of a walking, talking one-liner than an actual character. A force of habit more than a force of nature, the suave, sarcastic Johnny is an extended cameo that serves as a preamble to the story, an influence on your player decisions, and color commentary with disparity as a sort of double protagonist. There are flamboyant portrayals layered with real drama, subtlety and woe, such as the sophisticated sex worker Evelyn, the tattoo technician Judy, and your best friend Jackie, not to mention many others. The true leading lady is Night City herself.
Night City.
Know what I like most about Night City?
Night City lives up to its name as the eventful epicenter of evening junkets, a breathing, puffing vortex of happenings from vertex to vertex. Plying through the hulking roadways and back alleys with music thumping, hormones pumping, and pulses jumping, leaves you disoriented and scatterbrained at the perplexity of the city proper. Inescapable is the blink of jumbotrons as they lower over the gamut of strobes that kindle the seedy airspace. Embedded beneath the menace of megastructures towering overhead is the niche of nightclubs that rave and flicker restlessly across the skyline round the clock like searchlights, coaxing you to find your next objective or diversion. Night City is to be reckoned with. To roam this habitat is not to simply pass over the perimeter, but to perambulate the metro, surveying each swerve and shortcut, patronizing each corner shop and street vendor, respecting what's worthwhile, the detail and variety packed into every square foot under the scintillating penumbra. The tireless people of the night help to dub this hub from the non-stop crime of the many territorial gangs to the voyeurism of the pastel-haired harlots, call girls for the lonesome. Cyberpunk's set is tremendous, its props bizarre and believable, but the weight is carried by its actors. Night City is an exotic environment that may well be the crest of open-world backdrops, the acme of open-world surroundings. There is a painful existence inside Cyberpunk. Night City is the central character, confident, rambunctious, and fierce, but also irreconcilable, conflicting within itself and its own self-interests. The NPCs, armed with prismatic garments, advanced robotics, explicit with intent. The cosmetology superficial. Desire is more than merely skin deep. A longing for a foray into human connection, no matter the persuasion.
Rushing off to.
Oh, don't you look delicious? Come here and let me have a lick.
In 2077, corporations rule the world and have greater spheres of influence and pull than the government. The most powerful man alive is the president, not of a country, but of a corporation. The currency is Eurodollars and flying cars are a thing, but they are out of reach for all but the most well-connected. In Night City, making it to an old age is a privilege, while immortality is a right reserved for the rich. But everyone's life has a price on it. Technology makes life easier and equally more threatened. Minds are linked to microchips and consciousness can be kept alive in computers. Memories are stored as brain dances, data to be replayed and scrutinized for inquiry or perverse watching. The setting is futuristic, but the nature is barbaric. The people despondent, a dreary cynicism prevalent in the air. The narrative is mature. Loyalties are tested and romances are spoken for, and rarely does a story so brief seem to cover so much breadth. The plot is easy to follow, but challenging to reflect on. The characters are memorable and their stories will grip you. It will take you only about 20 hours to complete the main line, but because of what is revealed by your options, Cyberpunk 2077 is best experienced through side quests, or perhaps not experienced at all. Don't deprive yourself of the side storylines. They are the best components the game has to offer. You can do a lot in Night City, but you can't do everything. You can collect cars that only you can own, or you can rip off someone on the street, but only if you have a certain factor to match the street cred of the car you intend to steal. You can collect a lot of trinkets and inspect the detail put into food and trash, but you can never really use those items for anything. You can rarely eat food or even need to. You can engage in fistfights with locals for cash and collect bounties for the police and rival gangs.
Come on, baby.
Most importantly, you can, for the purpose of a safer context, romance various NPCs, but that term is obviously euphemistic for the naughty act of gnashing together private parts. This is rather striking and enjoyable, and is the best such example I've seen in a game, one of the major selling points of buying it. The NPCs are very attractive, some of the best looking character models ever made, and though you will see some of them twice, there is a lot of attention put into making each of them. The soundtrack, ordered for the game, is a crossbreed of many different genres and themes, almost like a concept album, guessing what 2077 would actually be like, and it's a good guess. You can slow down time and chop your enemies into bits with blades. The RPG combat section of this game includes the tired implementation of color-coded loot for weapons and ammo, but you can probably make your way through the game just fine without ever needing to upgrade any of them manually. I spent a lot of time in the early game just beating up on people with fists, a mechanic with really poor coordination. Your stats each have their own attributes and can be ranked up by proficiency, but there are never any sections of the game where it feels like you really need to have a particular upgrade to have the advantage. There are builds there to make if you want to, but they aren't game-changing, only adding incremental increases in most cases to your stats, and they require a lot of time doing side content to gain the additional experience or cash to unlock them. I personally beat the game using mostly pistols and blades and didn't consider that it took all that much skill or thought, except for aiming, which does take some getting used to at first and requires more coordination than most FPS games. Overall, the game doesn't do a whole lot of anything new in the regard of combat, and the combat is the weakest component of the game. You're not really playing this game for the combat, just like you wouldn't play GTA for the combat. With multiple beginnings and endings, the replay value is there, but the difficulty in combat won't add all that much to the experience. I used an analogy at the beginning of this review to liken this game to taking a ride. The hype surrounding Cyberpunk 2077 was unordinary and unrealistic, but perhaps unfair knowing what we know about the schism of perception when our expectations aren't met, and also how a roller coaster turns at great heights. The decline of hype is largely inevitable. Striving to be a legend, much like the characters in the game tried to be, means putting out all the stops, which it didn't do, as most games don't. It is a game proposing a lot of possibilities, perhaps a product of false advertising like a lot of the promotions seen in-game. Cyberpunk 2077 is a flawed but ambitious game, a aspiring to create one of the great open worlds ever realized, something it did achieve in the creation of Night City, arguably the best centerpiece in an open world game as of 2020. Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't quite soar as high as some would like it to, but of course, what goes up must come down.